Good morning, everybody. Sure hope everyone is feeling well, doing well. Welcome to Friday, and most importantly, welcome to Encounter Daily. I'm Shane, super excited to be here. We're going to hop in, as we do every weekday, and grab one little piece of the Bible. We go through just one chapter at a time, and our goal is to journey through the New Testament. It's going to take us about a year, but more importantly, we try to focus along the way on making ourselves available to encounter Jesus. We believe that he is the main character in this story that we're reading through, and that his desire is to encounter us. And so we try to make ourselves available to that. We're going to be looking at Matthew 19 today. We've got Tekoa and Susanna and Hawkeye all in the chat. Excited to have you all. And I know at this point I just risk sounding ridiculous. I am going to try to have questions today. So this is a tough one though, to open myself up to questions. This is a pretty challenging chapter in today's world. But we're just going to jump right in. Here we go. Beginning at the top of Matthew 19. When Jesus had finished saying these things, all of these things in chapter 18 that Cassie went through yesterday, he left Galilee and went into the region of Judea to the other side of the Jordan. Large crowds followed him, and he healed them there. So a quick note here before we get into the meat of this. With this chapter, we're entering the final movement of the book of Matthew. Jesus leaves Galilee. It's always been kind of his home base. He returns there over and over. It's base camp for him. But now he's not going to come back. He's setting his sights on Jerusalem, and on the way there, and certainly when he's there, we see a series of confrontations with the religious leaders of the day. And I think of this whole last movement of the book of Matthew as the clash of the kingdoms. It's super dramatic, but I think it's justifiable. And on the surface, it looks like the clash is between Jesus and the religious establishment. And while I certainly think that's true, I don't want to leave it at that. I feel like Jesus has made very clear over and over that we have a spiritual adversary, that he's not a personification of evil, he's not a metaphor, but he is a literal adversary. And one of his greatest weapons that he wields against us is religion. What does that mean? I thought religion was a good thing. Religion, and this is my own definition, so it may not be great. Religion is taking the life-giving, interactive relationship with our Creator that we were made for and that he continually invites us into, and reducing it to rules and traditions and performance-based behavior, and worst of all, the controlling human structures that get built around all that. So this whole clash of the kingdoms segment of Matthew, we see Jesus coming against religion in a human sense. We see him coming against it in a spiritual sense. And then climactically, he comes against the enemy and all the damage that he's done throughout history, as well as all that's broken with us individually and all the damage we've done. And of course, that climactic battle ends with Jesus paying the ultimate price for ultimate victory. But sorry, I'm getting ahead of ourselves. That's just some context as we see this conflict beginning, which starts right here in verse 3. Some Pharisees came to him to test him. This is an important point I'm going to spend a little bit of time on. Jesus had infinite patience with people who had genuine questions. And I tell people all the time, it's kind of one of my catchphrases, every genuine question is an invitation to an encounter with Jesus. Jesus doesn't mind our questions. He invites them, but they have to be genuine questions. So in the next several chapters, we're going to see the Pharisees coming to him again and again, relentlessly, and they're asking good questions, but they're not genuine questions. I mean, they're questions that when we hear, we're like, I like the answer to that. But in the hearts of the Pharisees, They don't care about the answer. Right here, it tells us what their objective is. They came to him to test him. And over, it'll make clear that they came to him to test him, to trap him, to pin him down in his words, to find some reason to turn the crowds against him, or better yet, to bring him up against charges as a heretic and get rid of him. And the scriptures become more and more explicit that that's their objectives. And I feel like a lot of people enjoy asking tough questions about God, about Jesus, about things of faith. And they're good questions, but for a lot of people, not all people, but for a lot of people, they're not genuine questions. Like a genuine question is a question that based upon the answer, you may change your beliefs, you may change your behavior, you may change your direction. I think a very fair question to ask yourself, and again, I'm not trying to be confrontational at all, but I think just so that you know yourself, so that you know your own heart. If you have you feel like this Jesus and this whole God thing, I have too many questions about it. Here's this question. Yeah, but what about this question? Let's just set all those questions aside and ask yourself just one question. If all of your questions could be answered and you knew that Jesus really was who he said he was, if you could know that that's true, would you follow him? And if the answer is no, then you're just engaged in kind of an intellectual debate. Your question, no offense, is not a genuine question. It's just a desire to debate. And there's nothing wrong with that. People love to debate, but it's good that you know where your heart is. And we certainly see where the heart of these Pharisees are. All right, let me continue. So they came to test him, and to test him, they asked him, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason?" "Haven't you read," Jesus replied, "that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, 'For this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh.' So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." Yeah, wow. Okay, so there's so much to unpack there. And it's just kind of interesting for me to note that Jesus didn't mind being controversial or offending the social standards of the day. Yet, some of his teachings have grown less offensive with time, and some have grown more offensive. Sometimes he would say something that would be totally shocking to people in his day, but maybe we're so used to hearing it that it doesn't surprise us anymore. Or, I think more often it's the case, our culture has changed so much that we don't even understand what he's referencing. But here, we see the opposite. Jesus is saying something that would have been a moral, almost a universally agreed upon moral foundation for all these listeners. But in our day, is super controversial. Jesus is leading up to teaching about marriage, and all he does at the beginning is remind everyone of the foundation. And that's this: our Creator created everyone as either male or female.